So first we have the nature of object or instrument which causes the wound. So this is the first point, right? If a blow is inflicted from a sharp edged object, the force is concentrated to a very limited area or a point or a line which causes a deep penetration or clear separation of the tissues. Okay, so what we are using here sharp edged objects, or you can say weapons. The hardness of the tissue will resist the passage of that object. With a blow from a blunt instrument having a flat surface, a relatively large area of the body surface will be involved. So of course, as I said, the instrument is really very important. If I am using different instrument, for example, if I am using double edged knife, so it will create the injury on the both side, okay, both side of the tissues, and you can see the sharp edges. If someone is using really very sharp edged knife, or if someone is using blade, so the cut will be really very sharp. We will be able to see the sharp edged wounds and cuts. And if someone is using some blunt instrument like hammer, okay, so the hammer will create a blunt force trauma. So in most of the postmortem reports and the famous case, like if I talk about Arushi Hemraj murder case, so in Arushi Hemraj murder case, both the victims, Arushi and Hemraj both, they had blunt force trauma in their skull. So when we talk about blunt force trauma on the skull, the instrument, or we can say the weapon, could be a hammer-like weapon. So in Arushi Hemraj murder case, it is suspected that Arushi's father used to play golf. So that blunt force trauma may come from that golf stick. So here the instrument is really very important. The sharp edge object will create some specific type of wounds. The blunt edged instrument will cause different type of wounds. Irregularities in the shape of the instrument and curvature of the part of the body stuck, such as at the top of the head, may limit the area of actual impact to a small size, and damage will be more. So the impact size is small, the area of impact will be small, but the damage will be greater. When we talk about the area of impact, so most of the time what we think, if the area's impact is more, the damage will be more, but it's not the case, right? So if the area is small, the type of weapon we are using will might create the greater injuries. A fall against a projection may produce more serious injuries. Okay, this statement is really very important. A fall against a projection may produce more serious injury than a similar fall against the flat surface. For example, some person is falling from the terrace, and the ground have um, rocks. Okay, so the injury will be greater, and as compared to the rocky ground, if we have flat surface, if we have sand, okay, if we have a sandy surface, so the injury will be more lesser as compared to the um, rock ground, right? When a blow is struck with a plastic instrument, some of the energy will be spent in deforming and breakage of the instrument as well. So most of the time, if someone is attacking someone with some plastic objects, so the amount of energy will distribute towards the victim and towards the weapon as well. So if we are using the plastic weapons, or if we are using some breakable type of instrument, so the energy will be distributed in both the areas, okay, which increases the size of area of impact and increases the period over which the energy is discharged. Due to this, the damage caused is less with a rigid instrument. So the rigid instruments are those instruments which are really very hard, which is not flexible, right? So all the flexible instrument, if you are talking here, then these instruments are weapons only. So all these weapons which have rigid structure, that rigid structured instrument will cause lesser damage, and all the flexible type of instrument will cause is like greater type of damage. So this is the first thing. Then second, we have the amount of energy which is discharged during the impact. So in the mechanism of creation of injury, we have seen that the amount of energy which is getting transferred from one object to the other object, or the other object can be victim to. So the amount of energy which is released during the impact plays a really very important role. And here this energy is kinetic energy, which is measured in a moving object. So we can measure the kinetic energy of bullet. We can measure the kinetic energy of some rock. We can measure kinetic energy if something or some object or some body, including human body, is in force. So it is again the basic formula. We can say K is equal to IF to mv, where m stands for mass. Here v stands for velocity. An object with definite velocity and definite weight has a definite amount of energy. This is the basic physics we have seen, we have heard, or we have read in our junior classes. So this thing is not like explainable, I should say. So you guys can just read it out and it's clear. When the mass doubles. Okay, so for example, if 20 kg, if let's say if we have a teenage boy or a girl, that person fell from the terrace. So the amount of energy transfer will depend on the mass of that child, or it depends on the mass of that person. Okay, if the obese person is falling from the terrace, then the amount of injury will be of course greater because the mass is more. So it is directly proportional to the mass. So when the mass doubles, the kinetic energy is also doubled. The basic thing here is that if the mass is doubled, the kinetic energy will be doubled, and the injury and the nature of injury will be more severe one. When velocity double, kinetic energy increases by 4 times, which is really very important. I'm marking star here, so you can just simply understand that this is important. This indicates the velocity has far more influence. The velocity have far more influence on the energy compared to the mass and object. The light bullet has relatively greater destruction power because of its high velocity. So when we talk about bullets, so we have different types of bullets, and most of the time the lighter bullet. Okay, so we have bullets which is made up of different alloys like brass and other metals. So if our bullet have light, like if we are using lighter bullet, the velocity will be more, and if the velocity is high, the amount of injury or the injury will be the most destructive one, we can say. So that's why energy is important, velocity is important. So velocity is important as compared to mass and object. Okay, then we have third thing, the condition under which the energy is discharged. So in an impact, most of the energy may be spent in causing generalized movement of the body, due to which the person may be knocked down, but local injury may be minimal. So that have the same thing. Okay, so sometimes we look on us and we think everything is like fine, but sometimes that person might have some internal injuries or some internal bleedings or some internal traumas which will result, like which have like greater risk, we can say. So I have read some case somewhere. So in a fight, okay, a person had like blunt force trauma in his head, and they, like, it was the case of, I think, property dispute. So like both, let's say person A and person B, both the persons were brothers, and they were fighting over some land. And in that fight, let's say the person A uh, hated the person B, and the person B looked completely fine for the next 3 to 4 days. So that person have had blunt force trauma in his head, and after 3 days, that person got hospitalized for the pain, and that person was not able to move on his own. So like the family member took him to the hospital and they have admitted him there. And after 1 week, I think after 1 week of the fight, that person died because of internal brain trauma. So that's what I am saying, and I was saying that sometimes we look at the person and the person look completely fine, but it is not even that that particular person might have some internal injuries, that person might have some internal traumas which might result into death, or which might result into CV type of cases. Like sometimes it goes to coma, sometimes it goes to of course coma, and we have one type of coma, again I'm forgetting the name at this moment, but we have one type of coma, that is persistive resistant state. I have given the example of Munna Bhai MBBS at that time. I remember that. So in Munna Bhai MBBS, we like that movie had a character of a person who was stiff, and that person was in coma. So that is again a type of coma in which the person's body responds, but that person's brain does not respond. So sometimes internal injuries or internal wound causes that type of situation. Most of the time, it's just coma and death. If the head is free to move. For example, if the head is free to move, a blow may cause little damage, but a similar blow to a head resting on the ground might cause marked injuries to the skull. And let me tell you all, the skull is really very hard, stiff, and rigid structure. It's really very hard. We have, I can say the brain is, of course, really very short tissue and structure, but the skull is hard. And if we have injury on skull, it will again reflect to the brain. So if we have, like for example, if the head is resting, okay, if the head is moving, the blow will cause little damage, and if the person's head and the person's skull is resting, then the amount of injury will be greater. Any factor which increases the period of time over which the energy is discharged, of course it matters a lot. It will also decreases the destructive effects, really very important. So if the skull is in movement, it will decreases the destructive effect of the blow. For example, a punch with a fist, if withdrawn quickly, will produce more damage than more where the first stays in the place. Okay, so if the fist stays in the place, it will not cause the greater damage, but if the fist is withdrawn quickly, then the damage will be greater. And then we have the nature of affected tissues. So again, we have multiple things inside it. So we will cover this, like the nature of affected tissue, in the next class, because this class will be super lengthy for that. So I am like keeping this thing for the next class, the nature of affected tissues. As I already told you, we include the skin, the subcutaneous tissues, the muscles, the bones, body fluids, and gases. Okay, so we will cover all these, I think 1 2 3 4 5 6, okay, 5 to 6 points we will complete it in the next class. Okay, so in this class we have covered first point, the nature and object of the nature of the object, or we can say the instrument, the amount of energy which is discharged during the impact, the condition under which the energy is discharged. These 3 points are really very important. The fourth point we will discuss in the next video. So I hope till then you will stick in, you will join that class as well. And yes, that's it for today's class. And if you have any question, query, or doubt, you can comment that down below. And if you want to join any of our classes, you can download the application. All the details are given in the description box. And if you want to get some sort of contact, then we have an WhatsApp support. We have a WhatsApp support number given in the description box again. So do check that out. And if you like this video, you can click the like button. You can share it with your friends and seniors and juniors. And stay tuned. See you guys in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye.